And first, I would like to invite our panel moderator on stage, that is Mr. Raj Katari, who is the Senior Director for Large Enterprise Sales at 𝗕2𝗵𝗄. Please welcome him with a huge round of applause. To join him, we have Mr. Rohit Bagade, who is Vice President Finance at Walmart Global Tech Limited. Please welcome him with a huge round of applause. Mr. Arjun Mohan, who is the CEO for 𝗙𝗏. Please welcome him. Mr. Kaushik Sarkar, who is the Senior Vice President and CFO at Bosch Global Software Technologies. Mr. Harish Pasupulate, who is Director of Finance and Finance Systems at JLL. And Mr. Subhash M, who is the Director of Finance at Dell. Please welcome the entire panel with a great round of applause. And over to you, Raj sir, to get started with the session.
Everyone back on the stage. So as we get into this panel discussion, I was looking at a bunch of questions which came up, which kind of sets the context in terms of where we want to spend time in this panel and what kind of questions we want to kind of deliberate and get different thought leaders and their perspectives and their experiences to be shared. The question really is the finance function ready for the tomorrow's world, which is the Uber theme, right? Is the future of finance, is it all about people or is it all about technology? And then there are so many leaders who are struggling to find top digital talent. Why is that so, and how relevant is that? The next point is around supporting the wave. Does finance need a complete new skill set to adapt? Or is there a way they can think about their teams to evolve with and transition to where the new stuff is going to be? And how do you build competencies to be successful in the future? The last point is around adopting to the automation and the AI wave for business benefit, and what does that mean back into the ecosystem? So, I mean, a lot of people have spoken about these concepts across the board in terms of all the speakers who have shared different perspectives. My request to the panel members as we go through the conversation is not just talk about how you think about the question from a conceptual point of view, but what will be great is if you could give some real life examples from your work life and stuff that you resonate deeply with, which will help us amplify the message and why so, right? So if I can get started, I would probably request, let me start with Harish if you don't mind. Yeah, I'm not necessarily going in any specific shape and form here, but if going back to the concept and the set of questions which have been set as a context for this conversation, the largest piece is around skill set and how do we get ready from the future from that point of view. So Harish, what's your take? There's a mention of a lot of functional stuff, but we know a lot of soft skills also make a big difference. So with your experiences, how do you think about soft and functional skills? And also if you have any examples which can help amplify how applying that made a difference in real life.
Sure, thank you. One is, I would like to just give a pointers for that, what is functional and what is soft skill is required, but I would like to zoom out and take 2 steps back and then give one small perspective for that. I was recently reading one article released by Deloitte. It says that in 2018, they were expecting that almost 35% of the process gets automated. And then same bunch of people, and then population was different. And then same organization released another article saying that now, by 2022, it's around 65% of the process are getting automated. That's how the impact of the technology in all over. So if we takes that perspective and then again see at the personal lives, we all have faced, is it, like pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, during the pandemic, correct? Most of us, along with the professional life, we also has to like kind of manage the personal life. So most of us replaced our personal work with the machines and technology, like we bought dishwashers and then most of mopping, most of them technology has been done there. So this clearly shows that everyone wants to change. Everyone wants technology. So with that, when I come to my finance, the people who are there in my team, they are having that attitude, change attitude. So each person is different. So I always remember one example, recently I was teaching to my daughter that parts of the, like organs, is it, human body. So each one will function in a different way. Similar way, the team members in our finance are from the different skill set, background, and the culture. So if I go to Google and then type it, what the skills of future finance team or functional or technical, I'll get a lot and lot of data. But I cannot just copy that and then put it to my team. So as a leader, what we have to do is we have to be a coaches and then mentors and then understand from where they are coming. Once we understand, it becomes very easy for us to just see and then upskill them. So as you said, one is functional, yes. Gone those days where I can say that I'm an expert of O2C or I'm an expert of P2P. Now, because of this automation, what's happening is, yes, I'm an expert in O2C or R2R, but I'm expected to know how the P2P or R2R side is also working. Because when I'm talking to my business, I should be able to connect the dots and then bring out the story from the data. Because they don't need data. Data the system gives, but what they are expecting is the insights. So I should be aware and then I should be mature enough to help my team to upskill how to convert the data into the insights. So that becomes one of the most important functional skills. Another one is, it's not just accounting, because of the technology, there are so many projects will be running, most of the bots are installed, etc. So again, the project management skill. I'm not saying that everyone has to be PMP in my team, but yes, project management is not just putting Excel and then running the meetings, no. There are a few methodology. So I may have to encourage them to upgrade or upskill themselves in that. And then another one, once the machines are installed, again, I have to focus on process. How do I encourage my team to look at the process, improving the process, etc. Then again, it comes Lean Six Sigma, so those aspects. So can I encourage them? So when I put everyone onto the table and then see, each one has a different skill set and then think about it and then give only those aspects for the upskill. That is one. Next one is soft skill. As soon as I say soft skill, the communications become so important. The communication is not the language or the vocabulary we use. I got one wonderful line from my one of the mentor. He says, communication is like rain at the right time gives a bumper crop. Words used at the right time gives a super duper response. So I have to upskill my team with a good communication skills where they know how to talk, when to talk, which data to be used to convert them into insights so that I get a very strong business partnering. So that is one. And I know IQ is amazingly important. They have to be top in IQ. But equally, EQ is so important. If my team doesn't have a strong EQ, though they are very good experts in accounts or project management, whatever it is, they will fail. I will not get sponsored by my business. So I have to also tap that skill, and then I should be a strong coach to identify that and then encourage them to upskill that IQ skills like soft skills, maybe business acumen, business partnering, etc. So these are the few things which are very important.
Thanks, Harish. I mean, my largest takeaway from everything you said, right? Functionally, obviously, there's a lot of value we can do to ourselves and our careers by building those skills. But let's be honest, we can also acquire those skills through other people, other groups in the organization, or external consultants if required. But the one thing which nobody can take away from you is being an effective business partner. And for that, the underlying soft skills and the EQ is non-negotiable irrespective of what you do. I think of it as a very critical gem of a point, which is important for you to think about getting your own career from where you are to the next stage and then onwards. So thank you, Harish. Shifting gears, I just want to ask a question to Rohit. We talked a lot about skills with Harish and his experiences, but if you want to think about what's that underlying organizational mindset and culture? We all talked about culture, we talked about mindset, earlier some speakers and thought leaders talked about willing to try, experiment, fail, and all of that stuff. So can you demystify this concept of culture and how do we create the right mindset What are your thoughts? And if you can also give some examples which actually made a difference in the functioning environment, that would be great.
Sure. Again, thanks for having me today for this summit. Let me first talk about mindset, right? And I'll give you an example in terms of a phrase. There's a phrase which says, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Now let's play this out in terms of how various functions would look at this phrase. So a sales guy will say there is light at the end of the tunnel, for sure. You talk to a legal person, the person will say there is light at the end of the tunnel, that's an incoming train coming towards you. Erstwhile finance would say there is light at the end of the tunnel, you know what, I've got budget cuts, I'm switching off the light. And now what we want to look at is there is light at the end of the tunnel, let me help the business in terms of reaching there early. So I think the mindset part is perhaps the most crucial part, Raj, in the overall scheme of things. And that comes long term, right? I mean, it cannot be transactional, it cannot be topical, it is something which has to be ingrained day in and day out. Let me give you a couple of examples in terms of what I have seen mindset thing really transforming finance and the business. Number one is, I mean, I've been part of 3 or 4 MNCs by now, and I must say that not many decisions are made based on data, but it is based on gut feel, right? Oh, this customer is fantastic. You know what, mujhe customer chahiye, right? And after that, we forget about everything else. I think someone spoke about the second sale or third sale. In a lot of these cases, the second sale does not happen. It's the first sale, and then you realize that there is no get well plan there, right? But what is more important is how do you really ensure that you drive decision making based on data? And that is where the tone at the top is very important, and it starts from the C-suite. When you decide to take a decision, it has to be based on data and not based on intuition or a gut feel. So in my view, it all starts from there. Once there is a clear tone at the top, and then there is a clarity in terms of what we are going to do, the rest everything will be taken care of. That's one example. Second example is, in all the previous presentations, everyone spoke about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and someone said that it's the most abused word, right? And rightly so. I would remove the ABU of abused, and I'll say it is the most used word as well, and I'll give you an example. In one of my previous companies, the sales forecasting, and I don't know whether it's an art or science or commerce, I don't know what it is. It's about gut feel, right? And we have already seen people talking from X to Y, and we really don't know where we will land. What we did about 3-4 years back was to launch a machine learning algorithm which will forecast the data or forecast your numbers based on the pipeline, depending on the number of deals that are there in the pipeline, depending on the time taken historically, looking at the historical pattern, looking at new customer versus existing customer, looking at the industry verticals to which the customer belongs and all that stuff. And when we started our forecast calls, the machine learning forecast was just one data point that was there in the conversation. Over the period of time, over the next 7-8 quarters, we realized that the machine was able to forecast things much more accurately as compared to people forecasting based on their gut feel and all that stuff. And early 2020, and the reason why I'm saying early 2020 is after that we had a Black Swan event, and all your historical numbers go for a toss, right, after that. But we came to a point wherein in the forecast conversations, the conversation was that, hey, the machine is giving a number of X, and you are giving a number of Y. Why are you talking about a number which is very different from what the machine is talking about? And by the way, that machine was talking about every deal classifying into low risk, medium risk, and high risk. And the sales guys were asked to explain why their numbers are radically different. So here is an example wherein things can be actually used and not abused towards building a culture which is more data driven, towards building something which is based on trend and all that stuff. The last part, and I think it was covered by the earlier panelists, it's about ensuring that we keep the next generation or finance leaders future ready. Now, 2 or 3 things that I want to talk about. Number one is, look, when we talk about finance transformation, the reality is it is at the heart of any business transformation, right? The way you engage with your customers, whether it is invoicing, contracting, etc. The way you engage with your suppliers, whether it is in terms of having an RFP or negotiating the contracts with the vendors, or the way you engage with your employees, right? In terms of all the different payroll-related processes, etc., etc. They all touch critical aspect of finance systems as of now. Now, the important part is, how do we make sure that our finance team is future ready? So 3 or 4 things, and we are trying to implement that in my current company as well. Number one is understanding the business, right? It is very important for us to, for the finance team to understand the pulse of the business, so that when someone comes with a problem, You understand the root of that particular problem and then try to help out, number one. Number two is cross-pollination, right? There are, someone said, I am an O2C specialist, or I am a P2P specialist, or I am a R2R specialist. When I talk to my team, I tell them, you are finance guys, period, doesn't really matter. So you need to ensure that you cross-pollinate talent from one role to another role, and that really gives them a very enriching experience from an overall perspective. Number three is, how do you make them digital ready? While there is data, in fact, someone said that the amount of data that has been generated in the last 2 years has been more than the amount of data generated in the entirety of human history. So you need to ensure that the data is available. How do you harness data? How do you foster data? How do you convert them into meaningful insights? But more importantly, then how do you have a conversation with the business stakeholders based on data, right? And that is where three things. One is clear articulation, clear communication, and clear collaboration. I think to me that's very important. The future finance organization should move from accounting to analytical to thought leadership. It should move from just helping the business to driving the business forward, and it should move from being a back end to a front end. So that's my view.
Thanks, Rohit. The one thing which caught with me a lot in what you said is about the tone is set from the top, and we need leaders to walk the talk, so that the larger teams are able to then embrace that, take it as a motivation, guidance, or as a support in whichever shape and form, and then work within that framework. So it starts with us, and it depends on how we set the tone and can make sure that everybody around us understands the tone we set. So, question to you, Kaushik, is we talked about skills and mindset, but let's talk about whatever the future of the organization is. Are we designed right from an org structure point of view? What changes do you think are required? Are there any examples where you had to tweak org structure to make it more future ready?
Yeah, thanks, Raj. First of all, great to be here. And it's a great question, right? And we don't think of it, but it's important for us to think in that direction. So let me step back and try to answer it a little holistic way before coming to the org part of it. So any transformation, it starts with people, process, organization, and technology, right? Technology, organization, process, and people. So organizations do play a role out here. And when I talk about the digital transformation, it's about connecting people, process, and customers. And organization being a part of it has a role to play. So before answering it, I think we are in the VUCA world and it's uncertain. So we need to understand how the organization is geared up for. Recent changes, if you have seen, the business models are changing, the technology is changing, and people are thinking of getting resilient to decode and reimagine the new norm. So those are the few things. And if you see a lot of changes are happening. E-commerce is getting a prominence. Earlier, it's a brick and mortar, especially in our world, in Bosch. We were selling now. We are going into a platform of e-commerce as well. The other thing is about shared mobility that's getting predominance. So all those things are happening, and finance still have a problem of the legacy system, disparate system, and nothing talks to each other. And the experience, it's a distributed experience rather than a very synergic experience for everybody, right? So these are the problems in our hand, and we try to address that. And I think a few things before I go to your question. Raising the digital quotient of the people is very, very important. And earlier, a couple of years back or 3 years back, we started off a program called Digital Fluency, because unless the people are digital savvy, because transformation trusts people, you cannot, whatever systems and processes you lay down, it will not be successful. So 35,000 people in India, we gave our training to make them digital savvy, so that they raise the quotient from. We assess them about the capabilities and we thought it's level 4, even in Bosch software. We wanted to make it 8. And then having said that, how we implement those into projects so that the training is ingrained out in the system, and we get the value out of it. The other thing is about data structure and intelligence, how you create the data so that data is used rightly, intelligently, other than you try to download. Finance people don't want to download everything in Excel and trying to message it, and we forget whatever we have done in the past, right? And every data becomes different, and things become a little gray out there. We spoke about analytics, but the important thing I also want to speak about the experience. I think two important things is very important in today's world is about the user's experience. People in finance should have a fantastic experience being in the finance team. And the other thing is the customer experience. Finance is a customer to the business, and how you create that experience of your customers is very, very important. And unless you do that, there is always a to and fro between finance and business. Though I wear two hats, business hat as well as the CFO hat, so I can understand how the things play around. Now, trying to answer your question, it's about the organization, how to make the organization effective, right? And when we talk about the organization effective, one thing, and we use it also loosely like artificial intelligence, making the organization agile, right? And what agile means, nobody knows, right? So having said that, what we did is, in the finance community, how to make the organization agile, we created a program called Fit-for-Future program, which talks about how to make the organization competitive, how to drive excellence, how to connect all the dots across the world, all the organizations across so that it's seamless. Any projects can be done from anywhere in the world. And the most important thing is how to make the company a cool software company. So how we did is, it's going beyond the hierarchies of the organization, we create communities. So these are the business priorities. We pull in people from different finance organization and business and give them the problem to solve. So nowadays organizations are very, very flat network organization where you give them the problem and make them solve. So that's the agileness, how we wanted to bring, other than everybody spoke about the data, everybody spoke about systems, everybody spoke about problem solving. So one of the important things we do, give them the problem, pull in resources, make our organization how this group of people in finance and some people from the business solve the problem. That's the first thing. The second thing is about siloed versus integrated. We look at value stream. Sometimes every organization, in a big organization, is looking to very, very discrete, compartmentalized organization. Now, if you think of a common thing, we have been hiring a lot of people, especially in the pandemic time, because talent was a big problem. We hired around 6,500 people. What problem we saw is the experience of the people was very bad when we tried hiring them. If you see the hiring philosophy, recruitment team is involved, HR is involved, IT is involved to give the laptops, desktops, email, all those stuff. Security is involved, and the facilities to give space or where they will work from, or even send those equipments back at home is important. So if you look at a siloed organization, that facilities is looking at facilities, IT is looking at IT, recruitment is looking at recruitment, HR is looking at, it will not work. So you have to look the full value stream of the full thing, and somebody needs to lead it so that the people who are joining get that experience out of that. Ultimately, the first experience, I believe, is the last experience. And people who are onboarded needs to get the experience that they are joining a great organization which have a fantastic future. So that's my second example. The third example will be about, and I was speaking with you while we are having tea, about creating a business finance team, right? When Bosch is a 140 years company and very, very strong accounting background, people with strong accounting background. And the first thing they will say, everything is no, right? No to everything. And possibly, I'll not tell that it survived for 140 years because of that, but to give them some credit. But I see a tendency of telling no, not possible, your budget is not there, and everything. So what I did is, in order to support the business, enable the business, and people don't understand finance and other support functions survives if the business is there, right? If business is not there, those functions will not survive, right? However great it is. And now, having said that, I created an organization called Business Finance, which is like sitting on the top of a very core group, which does their functions fantastically. but they are like an analytics group which talks days in and days out with the business to understand the problems and solve the problems, right? And whatever they need from the core group, they will get it. They will have their due diligence and make a decision. And these are very, very young crowd which make things happen. And the other thing I spoke about, last thing I'll talk about is about data. Everybody speak about the data. Since IT also comes under me, we created a data officer within the team, which makes the data available to anybody and everybody on the tablets and on the phone. We put a program called Mobile First, so all the data has to be on the mobile so that people uses it. People never goes into the system and looks at it, right? So today's people are so busy, they will not open the emails and go ahead. Mails are not getting read. So what we also do we create WhatsApp groups for important topics and try to distribute because it's fast, it's like real time, and so that you can express your views and make decisions very, very promptly, even in WhatsApp. So we also have various apps called Associate Arena apps where people can give their concerns so that it goes to the top manager instantaneously and it's addressed in 24 to 48 hours. So a few things that comes to my mind. I'll not take more time. There are maybe many things, but these are the few things. And experience is also very important. Users experience as well as customer experience. We created a group to attack those specifically so that those needs are addressed.
Thanks, Kaushik. Yeah, there's a lot of deep connection with that point around experiences. I think it all comes down to the experience, not just internal, but also with your clients, customers, whomever, whatever you call them. And then I think a new concept of what I've heard, probably a few companies are doing it, when there's opportunity to do a lot more is putting a few critical people in a box, what you call it as communities, and helping them solve, allowing them to solve, empowering them to solve what's needed to get the business outcomes, instead of thinking about changing the entire organization to meet that purpose. So more agile, quick, go solve for what it's required and come back to continue to business as usual.
And you'll be surprised, people do solve the problem, what we cannot do.
They do. Yeah, thank you. Hey, Subhash, we talked a bit about control and this whole process of saying no, or the refined way of saying no. You and I had a casual chat. The question I really want to bring in front of you is, while all the future, all the transformation is happening, controls continue to exist as a fundamental responsibility of the finance community. But even these controls are taking an evolution to the future, where while you have to do what you have to do, which is probably a yes or a no or a don't do or something, but there is still a future within that space. How are you seeing that change in your control space and any experiences you could share?
Sure. Thanks, thanks, Raj. Thanks for that question. See, controls becomes very critical in any kind of a process. Like you rightly said, that remains one of the key deliverables or the ownership of the finance function. And we need to kind of continue to develop newer controls as the business progresses. And like what Kaushik was saying, we sometimes end up catching up always, because you are with legacy systems sometimes, and which may not necessarily cater to it, because the business is moving at a much faster pace. So we have to constantly look at how can I do things differently, because looking at the old way of picking up papers and having somebody look at it and then say yes or no, it doesn't work, because nobody has the patience for that also. So if you look at it, I can tell you a couple of things that we do. Something very simple, if you talk about one of the most common things that people look at is your travel and expense and any of those kind of claims. Now, there are always policies, so how do you comply with the policy? There are multiple ways of doing it. So one is, yes, you can hardcore certain things in the system, yes or no, allow or do not allow. You can also have softer warnings in certain cases. Hey, possibly there is a restriction here. That's the second one. But these are all self-imposed on, again, only on the employee. But beyond this, you can go to the next stage where you also have some additional exception reporting, which throws it out. Yes, it is all allowed. It processes, but it gives out a different kind of a report at a later stage. That is one. This is one side of it. If you look at the other side of it, which is more a bigger aspect, I would say, is on fraud prevention. Because we get so many documents today. I mean, it's all electronic documents. You get PDF, you get various other forms of electronic documents. Now, how do I know what is right and what is not being tampered with? I mean, that's an area where, again, we have done some work and where we do have, you call it AI, or you call it machine learning, or you can give any kind of names, but basically the system has a methodology or as an intelligence which is built in, which scans all these documents and throws out or identifies those where there is a potential tampering that has happened. So that gives a very strong upfront signal in terms of how do you identify and when can you identify. It gives us a much faster response to that to go and ensure that the interests of the organization are protected and we are able to have much early warnings on those aspects. The other one that I can also talk about is how do you, this is also perhaps slightly more simpler one, you call it bots that can operate, where you compare different documents. I mean, you have multiple sets of documents which you need to compare to kind of say whether this is right or wrong. I mean, that you don't need a person to kind of look into different systems and do it. I mean, this is also something that we have been able to automate, which compares different sets of documents and tells you, hey, are these three sets, if I have to give an example, say for example, if you're importing materials, is my bill of entry and my the entry that you recorded in your books and the invoice that you get, are they matching? I mean, this is something that system can do because these are all external documents. So these are all things that we have kind of automated and we have really benefited from it because you're able to protect the interest and you don't realize it at a later date, hey, something wrong has happened. So that's, to me, is very powerful and that's where we need to kind of move towards a lot more in terms of looking at controls at every stage and every process.
Yeah, thanks, Subhash. Not being personally in a finance world, but that's a rundown in terms of how the everyday life of a finance executive or somebody fundamental in finance is. So thank you for that. Arjun, just picking you up on this question. There's a lot in the space in terms of what's in the future for finance. What do you think some of the challenges and more importantly, what are expectations of the rest of the world in the business or within the company of the finance as an organization? And are there any experiences you can share in terms of how you can help solve for it? Last question, if there is anything that you can bring from an upgrade perspective, which will then throw light given that experience, that will be a new twist.
First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's always nice to be seated in a room full of finance guys and talk from a customer perspective. Finally, I can be that person who can say what is the expectation. So rather than going into detail, let me just talk about a few anecdotes which happened in my career. So I started my career in Tata Group as a task manager, and one of the companies I was placed in was Titan. So this was something which happened in 2014. So if you believe it or not, till 2014, Titan had paper-based reimbursement. You have to write it in a piece of paper and submit the form and you get cash back. So they invested in a solution in 2014 and they completed it. And I was part of the meeting where they presented it to the MD, 𝗏𝗏. So Bhaskar saw this entire thing and said, good, you guys have done this, but you're 10 years late. So that's, I would say, was one of the skill sets which always was missed out in the finance team. That is the digital and the data skill. When I say data skill, I'm talking about the analytics and the new age data science skills which is asked for. But thanks to what happened in 2020 to 2022, I would say these have become hygiene now. There's hardly any department in any of our organizations, especially startups, where things are not digitalized. Everything has moved in, and the regulations also help, right? Before COVID, government asked for hard copies. Today, government and the banks doesn't ask for it. So a lot of things have moved in. So that expectation, I would say, has become a hygiene. Today, the expectations, what I would see is very different. For instance, for me, my CFO and my finance team are business partners, which means that I would look at them as someone who will enable me to get things done. And that's the relationship I would want to do. But at the same time, this becomes a very, very tricky role to do. Because at least in the startup world where you have the larger than life founders and the CEOs, they are also very stubborn about what they want. So the control part of it becomes all the more important. I don't want to take specific examples, but yesterday also there was an example of a CFO who resigned, and we know what happened in the last 1 week with that company and what led to it. So in my view, the expectation for the finance team today is much bigger than just account keeping and those documentation. It's about being a partner to the business. One, to ensure that we are having the right skill sets to build global practices. And at the same time, ensure that even when you are a privately held company, you have right controls in place so that one day your stock listing going global is possible. So that's what I would expect. I mean, from 𝗙𝗏, I mean, as a learning company, as an education company, 𝗙𝗏 has also tried to build out courses in that direction, because we felt that this was a lacuna which existed in the market. So we don't build, I mean, in the process of it, when I discussed the same with the team, they said, let's build courses in finance. I said, finance guys don't need courses in finance. What they need is courses in understanding how to run these things. What they need is courses which will give them so much of confidence that they have the credibility to sit in that room with all the CXOs and make their point through and stay headfast in their point of view. This requires great communication skills. This requires great storytelling skills. This requires them to be super clear and deeply understood about the concept they stand for. So that's the direction we have all moved. We have a few courses built out. I would be more than happy if you want to meet our team and talk about it. We'll also get feedback on how to improve on it. But nutshell, this is what, at least from a startup world, we expect from the finance team and the CFO.
Thanks, Arjun. A lot of us talked about what we need to do and where we need to do. I think you're showing the path of where exactly you need to go so that you could potentially start learning. It's good for your business too. Good, man. Listen, we have another few minutes. I'm just mindful if I can ask one last question, and if you don't mind, Subhash, I'll just bring it to you. You and I had a brief conversation around the mindset and the culture within the organization, and I know you had some unique points you wanted to share. If you could please.
Sure. See, to build that culture and the mindset, I think what is important is for people to get skilled, upskilled in terms of all of these new age requirements, if I may say so. Because when we come out, we do not have a lot of these digital skills are not naturally in finance people. I mean, we are experts in finance and accounting and controls and forecasting and a lot of other stuff. But how do we do this better? We need to have a lot more in terms of skill sets that needs to be built, which is going a little bit beyond even the soft skills, if I may say so. So what we have tried to do on this is there are a number of initiatives that we have tried to do in our organization. So we do what is called as a digital awareness program. Because first, if I have to go and use these tools and create something, I need to be aware of what is available. What do people imply about it? If I talk about visualization, what does visualization mean? How are the different tools that I can do? It's a second matter whether I can do it or not. First, I need to know what I should go and ask. So we are first enabling people to go and ask the right questions. That's one. Second, then we also have an advanced course where there may be some people who may be more interested also in acquiring some of those skills and doing it themselves. You always do not need an IT person to come and do these things for you. So we also have what we call as digital certification that we do. The other thing that we also have encouraged is quite similar like what he was talking about. We have called what we host internally what we call as gigs. So quite similar to the gig economy that we do. So if I have a problem, I can go and post it internally in our intranet site and say, hey, this is the problem I want it to be solved. And then there are people who can look at it. And then if they have the right skill sets to solve that, they can sign up for that gig. And then we again go through an interview process and then say, okay, you have the right skill set, so let's go and solve this problem. And this group comes together and solves these problems. And we have really had a lot of success in that because people also like getting into something which is not their normal day job. They try to apply their skill sets in something completely different from what they are doing in their particular role. So that has also helped a lot in not only enhancing the knowledge of people, bringing about more cross-cultural, cross-team and cross-team building, as well as increasing the awareness across the team and also developing the knowledge. I mean, so that's really helped us, I would say, a lot.
Thanks, Subhash. Just to wind up, so, there's a lot of talks about skills, mindset, soft, functional, the underlying culture of the organization, and a lot of learning that's required, right? So the question is, where do you start? What do you do next? Talking to a few people, I think even going to the themes of what everybody said, I'll probably reiterate that. is, I think it starts with what's the outcome you want to solve. And if that's the outcome you want to solve, then you figure out where you want to invest your time and what you want to learn and skill yourself with. It'll probably give you the most meaningful starting point. I'm not here to advise you on what's best for you, but I think if there is a business outcome, starting with that outcome and the experiences is probably the best and the right place to invest our time and efforts in. And that's where the best is in terms of our skills. So thank you for listening to all of us. Thank you to the panel for sharing some of their rich experiences. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.